Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the Progressive Era in Arkansas. From 1901 to 1940, Arkansas continued to cope with changes and deal with the tensions created between those who sought reform and the rural majority who clung to traditional conservative attitudes toward religion, race, and social change. The progressive movement affected Arkansas as well as the rest of the country. Arkansans also suffered through natural disasters, race riots, and an agricultural crisis after World War I. Our objective is to gain a basic knowledge and understanding of the development of Arkansas's economy during the 1920s, centering on the development of road programs and corporations. It will also help identify the major social and political changes and activities in Arkansas between 1901 and 1932. Progressive reform. The period from 1900 to 1932 was an era of the progressive movement across the country. It was a time of grassroots reform. Arkansas participated despite the fact that it kept many of the repressive civil rights practices in place. The state limited reforms for blacks and continued to insist on minimal taxation. Its economy remained fragile, based largely on agriculture, which had many lean years. The reforms centered around increased governmental regulations, expansion of education, and improved transportation. These changes required funding, and Arkansas was hampered by a low population and tax base. On a social level, one national reform group was the NAACP. They fought the restrictions on black civil rights imposed during Reconstruction. They were active in Arkansas. The Progressive Governors. In 1901, Jeff Davis became the state's first progressive governor and an advocate of the common man. His focus was on trust busting. He was not welcomed by the state Democratic politicians, but was elected despite their resistance. He also expressed support for the issues of convict leasing and prohibition of alcoholic beverages. On the downside, he strongly advocated racism. He went on to become a U.S. Senator for Arkansas. Governor George W. Donaghy took office in 1909. He was a true Southern progressive. Generally, he did not challenge the existing political structure, but he managed to enact reforms in the areas of tax reform, education, public health, the enactment of citizen empowering practices like initiative and referendum. His most well-known reform was the elimination of the brutal convict leasing program. Joseph T. Robinson took office as governor for 2 months in 1913, but left to take over as U.S. Senator after the death of Jeff Davis. Though in office for only a short time, he fostered the passage of legislation creating the state banking department to combat corruption in that sector, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and the Highway Commission. The next progressive governor was Charles Hillman Bruff. He became governor in 1917. A professor and lawyer, he supported enactment of legislation allowing women to vote and a prohibition law known as the Bone Dry Law. Education was also high on his agenda. He advocated funding for education, vocational education, and compulsory education. His wife Anne was instrumental in some of his reform work. He, however, favored black segregation and did not promote black civil liberties. Post-war lessening of reforms and national disasters. For the most part, World War I resulted in the lessening of progressive reform efforts, though such efforts continue even today. A major race riot broke out in October of 1919 in the East Arkansas community of Elaine. It was related to protests by black sharecroppers against unfair practices by their white landowners. In the 1920s, the KKK regained influence. It functioned in support of the planters, landowners, and actively sought to suppress black civil liberties and promoted anti-Semitism, anti-Catholicism, and anti-foreigner sentiment. Lynchings were common. Governor McRae was paternalistic toward black Arkansans, but not pro-civil rights. The flood of 1927 along the Mississippi, Arkansas, White, and St. Francis rivers and their tributaries devastated thousands of square miles of land. The Red Cross worked to find homes for flood refugees and to fight disease and other health problems related to those floods. Floods were followed by drought in 1930. A food riot gained national attention in 1931 after farmers in England, Arkansas forced local merchants to give them food. Thank you.